Hey, so I haven't made a video in a while. Sorry about that. The Dark and Darker Twitch drops are going on, and well, we were live for like 10 straight days, with the guys working overnight shifts so I could sleep, and that way we didn't get a TOS violation. Shout out to Yami. And then I was in the chair for like 16 hours every day. Save for the last day where I kind of said, screw it, I miss my kids, and just rated a homie on the last day of the category that had like 8 or 9 viewers. It was a really good time, actually. Tiring, I'm whooped, but it was a good time. Oh, and I got the world's first cosmetic Twisted Cinder Torch. At least, I think it was the world's first Twisted Cinder Torch that you can get from the collector after you hand in an uber rare manta ray egg that spawns in the loot room of the manta ray boss like 1% of the time or less. Anyway, I wanted to chat with you all for a little bit about my impressions of the patch, how I think things went, how I think things are going, what I like, and what I don't. For those of you looking for a TLDR, my thought is that the patch overall is like an 8, maybe an 8.5. They're definitely moving in the right direction, but Ironmace has to nail down the next like 5 or 6 patches with some serious content additions and QOL fixes, or this ship is sunk for the vast majority of players that somehow decided to give them another chance. But with that, let's chat about my thoughts as to why. Leading into this patch, Ironmace fell on its face. Repeatedly. The flip-flopping on stat adjustments, the flip-flopping on what kinds of lobbies to run, the flip-flopping on whether gear should have stats, whether time to kill or hits to kill, whatever the hell they're calling it, should be long or short, and the flip-flopping on what type and how many Qs we should have. It seems as though they've finally settled on this current system of Q options based on the population size of the game and the type of players playing it, at least that's what they're saying, with normals being something that people still get to select individually, but HR is still random. Normals still have a gear cap at epic quality gear, even though they drop legendary gear. A random map selector for the HR mode. No HR mode for the water map, which was introduced this patch because they can't figure out how to put a BR circle on the water map. And a random selected map still for the BR circle instead of fixed portals, but that's normals difficulty, where everyone starts off in Squire gear called Squire to Riches, but we refer to it as Squire to Fire. Oh, and if I may, on the water map thing, if you can't figure out the BR circle, just don't have one. It seems like people are getting slaughtered on that map anyway, so I don't really see what the big deal is. For the content additions they've added, the player base as a whole seems to have generally approved of everything that was added for the people that played it. Summit and XQC have even come back to try it, although XQC fucking sucks at the game, got uber frustrated and basically rage quit.
We'll get better, bro. We'll get better. We're not leveled, you know what I mean? We don't have
I mean, yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm no longer, okay, if I was playing Barbarian, I would have split this guy in fucking half like Moses did with the Red Sea. Bang! But I couldn't do shit.
And well, Summit is Summit, with some games where he kicked the hell out of people and others where he got ravaged by stream snipers. All the while trying to teach 2 of his buddies that have little to no experience in the game. At least I think one of them had like a little bit of experience, but none that really had the experience even that Summit has had. Summit's trying to teach them how to play it, which has been pretty entertaining from the lens of somebody with 4,000 hours. But yo, Summit, if you ever want to roll with somebody that knows what they're doing, we're mutuals on Twitter, bro. Just shoot me a DM, and I'll put you in contact with people that got skills. Not me, not to play with me. Oh God, no. I mean people that are actually good at the game. If you want to W key into people and die a lot playing in the Dungeon Melee Gamble Simulator, I am definitely your guy. Anyway, the water map that was added to the game, overall, a W. There's a bunch of janky attack animations with the mermaids like claw attacks, and the fish men, who are visually distinct but not audibly distinct murlocs, and the great white sharks can go straight to fucking hell, but the map is expansive. It's got depth, not just metaphorically. I mean, the water's pretty fucking deep. The swimming mechanics and the in-water fighting are pretty great for what they are, even though they're slower, and the boss fights are really cool. The Manta Ray fight might be the most immersive and interesting fight that Ironmace has ever produced to date. Blade Hand's kind of just another, like, dodge this, you plebs, boss interaction, and that's fine. But the Manta Ray is something else entirely. That boss is pretty cool. That being said, there were some major map collision issues, and there are still some janky things that need to be addressed on that map. The Manta Ray boss throws out these electric orbs that clip through the wall, just as a matter of example. On a lot of occasions, if you're too close to the wall, they clip right through the wall. And you need those orbs to be able to get into the middle of them, because during his like phase change one-shot mechanic, if you're not in the middle of them, you die. Unless you're a Sork with ice block. But then if you fuck up the timing, you still die. But anyway, if they clip outside the wall, that's a problem. Also, it's also a problem because if you're close to the wall and the Manta Ray charges you and hits the wall, he arcs lightning from his body to all of the lightning orbs, even the ones clipped outside of the wall, which is super fucking annoying because then the arc lightning goes through your body and kills you. So if they could like maybe keep the orbs inside the arena, that would be pretty great. You know, like keep your arms and orbs inside of the ride at all times. That's all I'm saying. There's also issues getting out of the water onto docks and other hard surfaces, which become worse as the map progresses into the maelstrom like weather effect that causes you to get thrown around a bit by the waves. Like sometimes you go to get out of the water, you just fly backward. The water combat and movement for a lot of people ends up being too slow. And the map traversal for a lot of people is also something that a lot of people complained about. But I think, though, once people realize that there are quick ways to get around the map via the zip lines, like, for instance, if you go under the Spire Island and up through the middle of it via the ladders instead of fighting your way past the pirates around the outside of it, or the underwater slipstreams or the rowboats, you can get around the map pretty quick. I'd argue that it's faster in most cases than, say, like if you spawn in the corner of Inferno and had to work your way like 6 or 7 modules away to the boss room, like in a zigzag pattern, just to find that there's another squad there fighting GK already. And as you're in the middle of trying to mess up their day, you end up getting fourth partied by another team, waiting in the next module over for someone else to engage the boss so that they could come in and clean out the entire room and get not just the boss loot, but yours and the other teams. Woosah, woosah, BR circle, doesn't have to be necessary, SDF. Okay, just calm down, Onepeg. The water combat also took a lot of getting used to. One of the main issues I found playing something like a Warlock in the water map is that the hit scan spells, like the curses, had their cast distance, like, halved. Also, there's, like, these droopy dick arrows whenever somebody fires a bow. But the curses and stuff, they were already really short. It had, like, a 7-meter range. Now it's, like, 3.5 meters. You're basically, like, halberd range just to land a curse. So it's super-duper short now. And when you end up against movement characters like a barb or a bard or range-centric characters like a longbow ranger or a fighter with a crossbow, it becomes kind of rough out there. Like, you kind of get dunked on. The same can be said for wizard in the water. Even though they do have magic missiles to spam, they're pretty easily avoided. None of the fire magic gets cast in the water because, for obvious reasons, water, fire, you know. And while you can zap targets, it's just the initial hit. The burn obviously doesn't work in the water. Never have I thought to myself I needed to bring, like, slow into water so that I could slow my target even further, so then I could, like, hit them with an ice bolt, like slows on slows. It's kind of weird. Again, though, this is one of those things that once you start getting used to it, it's a little bit easier. Murlocs, the Murlocs, quote-unquote Murlocs, and for instance, Blizzard, please don't sue me, seem to be weak to arcane damage. And if you're running Overload as a wizard, for example, you can farm those mobs pretty super fast. However, I will say that the druids are fast with penguin form in the water. Druids are pretty quick. They got nerfed to shit, though. But barbs are faster when they're built for it, which makes them terrifying water juggernaut damage sponges. And if you mix that with Crush, now you have ultra-fast water juggernaut farmer. However, the king of the water is a bard. Their move speed buffs and weapon toolkit combined with their attack speed make them more terrifying in the water than an elite great white shark. And fuck those guys. I watched one of those things chew Grayson's face off, which was actually really, really funny. And the loot on that map is also buffed into the stratosphere. It is nothing to constantly and consistently find legendary treasure, gems, and wearable gear all over the place. To the extent that if I wanted to make money, I would take a max movement speed barbarian and just start smashing things as I swim around the map. But I'll make that farming video another time. Now, some people have been known to say that the loot is too good. To those people, I say shut the fuck up. And given that the map doesn't have an HR mode yet, because BR circles, come on SDF, come on, get with the program, just let it go. The loot seems just fine. It's just going to be the fastest way to make money in the game, shy of trying to run a botnet that snipes market listings by Cheeto-fingered fellas missing a zero on the end of their gold chest sale, or if you're a god at farming HR bosses and never die like my man Party Chip. You know, the whale, Party Chip. He never dies. The Faustian bargain is a new mechanic this patch. Depending on what kind of rep you have with this new vendor named Dealmaker, you can, after generating about 7 NPCs worth of XP, have an opportunity to respawn as an NPC yourself, or when you die, which my man Party Chip would know nothing about because he's never died in this video game. This gives you an opportunity to more or less fuck with people. This system has some pretty glaringly awful flaws in it, though. The reputation brackets that you find yourself in don't always make sense. So, as your rep increases with Dealmaker, you get access to more NPC options, but they're all random. When you get to be around 18 rep or so, you just repeatedly respawn as a spider mummy for some reason, which is really funny at first, until you realize that the majority of the time, you end up being the basic normal spider, and you have a fragile spider body wrapped in bandages that gets one-shot by so much as a stern glance from literally anyone or anything. You just get one shot, no matter what. And the spider is what you end up with like 90% of the time, probably more often than that. If you compare that to like a red goblin swordsman that you get at 7 rep, which is probably the most OP thing of all time, since you can just walk up and hit a goblin mage, kite it around with you, and then meme when its attack pattern inevitably goes into buff the gobos mode, which gives you then 50% movement speed and 50% attack speed, allowing you to just jump shot everyone else in the face with a poison sword. For the most part, the game mode doesn't offer much either, but it can be very good for a laugh. It can be very good for revenge on someone that got you. It keeps people in the dungeon on edge at all times, which I'm personally all in favor of. No one should ever feel safe in the dungeon. I don't give a shit who you are. This old Tarkov credo of there's always one more rings super strong with me here. Is it griefy? Yeah, kind of. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. For both parties. Sometimes. But does it fit within the ethos of what Dark and Darker is supposed to be about? You know, this frustrating dungeon game full of enemies trying to kill you, big and small, with relatively constant surprises. Definitely. I realize that this throws a curveball into the mix, but in my experience, generating a lot of rep now at this point, or having generated a lot of rep now at this point, most players that I come across that know what they're doing tend to be rid of the bargained NPCs in relatively short order. And for their trouble, the bargained NPCs also tend to have above average loot on them, with a chance to drop one of the Dealmaker's coins. Which brings me to this last bit. The Dealmaker sells endgame shit. He gives you 3 dailies every day. You get 1 rep, and then 2 rep, and then he gives you like 3, 5, and then 7 coins if you complete them. And then he sells you endgame shit for those coins. He sells a variety of legendary items. It's all legendary gear. As well as every hour when he refreshes, he gives you a single craftable like monster drop item. There's like a monster part that he has for sale. They're usually pretty cheap too, although the pricing of some of this stuff is kind of all over the place. A frost wyvern hide, for example, is like 2 coins. A spectral fabric is 4, but the troll pelt is 40. I'd like to see his prices improve as his rep increases too a little bit. Like, he should discount over time, I think. And the affinity list for the characters people are able to play needs to be like significantly adjusted, as do the RNG weights for higher affinity players to be more likely to get some of the stronger monster types. No one at 30 rep wants to spawn as a spider in goblin caves 9 out of 10 times. Like, the last time I tried to slam through the dailies, I got Spider Mummy 15 games in a row. It was tedious, to say the least. Fucking Terry, please. Okay, now on to gear. A lot of the armor pieces, the new armor pieces, and the cutlass and stuff definitely have a place in the current meta of the game, especially with the items that have headshot damage modifiers like the Jester set. There's also a much larger variety of builds in the game that are actually viable than there's ever been, especially if you're a Warlock, a Fighter, or a Barb. Although I will say that Ironmace has repeatedly been doing and continues to do Wizard and Bard pretty dirty in the lack of variety department. But, shining light for everybody, there's a rumor going around that SDF said he's working on some ice-centric spells for Wizard to be added to the game. So there's that. The Bard rework that Terry stated he did for Bard during the Q&A was pretty light-handed. Sure, the party time area of effect thing is cool and all for physical healing, and you can get some serious phys heal between that and the Jolly Time perk along with some phys healing gear that would heal you for 19 HP per ale at max, but that reduces you to like 5 songs, because you're sacrificing songs for this one-on-use item, and then you still end up having to sacrifice a perk out, which still leaves the OG 10-song Bard as the strongest option for the class, like hands down. I myself have been completely loving playing Melee Warlock this season, but I'm doing it kind of in a meme way, along with like Damage Reflect, Soul Collector, Demon Armor, Vampirism, and using Bach along with Dark Offering, stacked to like 8 or so, to clap somebody in the head with a Faustian for like 150 damage and a 40+ damage reflect if somebody hits me, while maintaining or managing 40% PDR, 325 move speed, 30% buff duration, and like 30 resourcefulness for that interaction speed. So then I can get the bandage wraps like on me fast AF for the solo days, and then clap some cheeks in arena, you know? So satisfying hitting a wizard, by the way, in the head and watching him fold faster than a Cape Cod Karen's beach chair right before the rain hits. In case anybody was wondering. But if those buffs are down, I am giga-fucked. Like, there's no way I'm winning, because I'm weak as shit without the buffs on. The solo self-found option that was given to us again this wipe for the first 2 weeks is typically my favorite time of the wipe cycle, given that it forces like 99% of the player base, you know, well, aside from that 1%, you know, the guys that aren't card swiping a Chinese sweatshop for gear, not those guys, but the other 99%, it forces them to play with substandard gear and try to make a build work without having optimal stats. But that's just me. I'm a guy that literally makes a living playing video games. Most relatively casual gamers that play Dark and Darker tend to not care for SSF, as I've come to learn. Because, well, they just don't have the kind of time that the no-lifers do to farm the gear that people look for to, like, flesh out a better kit. When the market dropped and opened up, a lot of the normal gamer community seemed to have breathed a collective sigh of relief now, because they could hunt and peck for their preferred stat allocations. To me, this ends up being a double-edged sword. RMT, for the most part, during the SSF weeks, is possible via trading via, like, circumvention methods, but relatively rare, and only ends up really rearing its ugly face when you're trying to grind out HR for hours and hours on end, eventually being hunted by guys with, like, wall hacks, or worse, and/or people that did the China #1 credit card swiping method of gear accumulation. But once the market opens up, it becomes exponentially easier to both accumulate the gear that you're hunting for, and also to get absolutely decimated by somebody with more wealth than you, either in-game or IRL. I don't know which one here. Unless you're built different, Repose, or as the homies like to refer to him, Hard R, in which case you're killing that guy and taking his shit anyway. So the SSF thing can go either way. Like I said, I personally like it, but I can see the annoyance of it for those that don't. So yeah, for me, overall, the patch is an 8.5 out of 10. But I'm not holding my breath. I mean no offense to the folks at Ironmace or anyone else that's still a mega fan of theirs when I say that they still have a lot of proving left to do. And their biggest focus should be to make sure that the future patches they put out for the next dozen or so patch iterations, they need to knock it clean out of the park. There's no question there. If they don't, this relatively small win and this relatively small amount of goodwill they've gotten with this patch is going to evaporate faster than my KD ratio when I try to run knife only in BF6 for the memes. Don't forget, Midnight Walkers and Arc Raiders are both coming in like a month. Less than a month. Weeks. So my question to Ironmace from here would simply be, what are you guys going to do to retain the people that gave it another shot? And how are you going to hold their attention? Ironmace landed a solid jab with this patch. They did. But now they've got to follow up. So let's see what they can do with it. They've got a chance. I'm saying they got a chance. All right, hey, if you dug this video, the algorithm is about to recommend you a new one. Maybe go check that one out too. Hopefully you like it.